Most people believe poverty is about numbers, low income, high bills, bad luck. But that's not the whole truth. Because two people can earn the same amount, one will slowly build stability. The other will drown in debt, stress, and impulsive decisions. So the real question is, why do some people stay stuck even when their situation improves? What invisible psychological forces keep them broke? Today, we'll explore the silent mental patterns that sabotage financial progress long before the money even enters your pocket. This is not about judging anyone. This is about understanding how your mind, your childhood, your habits, and your emotional triggers shape every financial decision you make. Because money is never just money. It's stress, it's identity, it's fear, it's control, it's survival. And until you understand the psychology behind these forces, no amount of budgeting or side hustles will change your reality. Let's begin. The first reason people stay poor is the scarcity mindset, a constant feeling of there will never be enough. It usually comes from childhood. Growing up with instability, unpredictable parents, financial chaos, or emotional neglect, scarcity does three things to the adult brain. 1. Make short-term survival feel more important than long-term planning. The future becomes blurry. Today becomes everything. 2. Triggers impulsive decisions. When your brain lives in panic mode, logic shuts down. 3. Creates fear around money. Fear of losing it. Fear of saving it. Fear of investing it. Fear of even looking at your bank account. And here's the most ironic part. People with a scarcity mindset often spend more, not less. Why? Because every small pleasure feels like a temporary escape from stress. The brain screams, "Take it now. You don't know when you'll get it again." This is how financial self-sabotage begins. The second reason people stay poor is instant gratification, the brain's addiction to quick rewards. Scientists call this the dopamine trap. When life feels stressful, uncertain, or overwhelming, the brain looks for something, anything to feel better right now. Fast food, shopping, subscriptions, impulse buys, new clothes, gadgets, tiny luxuries that promise a moment of relief. But the cost of this relief is the future. People with unstable childhoods or high-stress environments are especially vulnerable. They've learned to survive the moment, not plan ahead. So the pattern looks like this. Stress, emotional discomfort, instant purchase, brief happiness, guilt, even more stress. A perfect financial loop that keeps people stuck. Money decisions are rarely rational. They're emotional. For many people, spending becomes a way to feel valuable, escape loneliness, reward themselves, cope with insecurity, prove something to others, silence their inner critic. If your childhood taught you that your worth equals how you look or what you own, your adult brain will try to buy confidence. This is why people who feel less than often overspend, not because they're irresponsible, but because they're trying to repair an emotional wound. Financial problems are often identity problems. Until you change how you see yourself, your bank account will reflect the same patterns. Another silent killer is learned helplessness. The belief that nothing you do will change anything. It forms in homes where effort wasn't rewarded, goals were mocked. Adults said, "Life is unfair, deal with it." Money was a constant source of conflict. People survived, not lived. When you grow up watching your parents struggle, fight, or give up, a part of your brain learns, success is not for people like us. So, as an adult, when you face financial challenges, you subconsciously accept them. You stop trying. You stop learning. You stop believing you can change your situation, not because you're lazy, but because your nervous system was trained to anticipate failure. The tragedy? People with learned helplessness often have the potential, but no internal permission to use it. Most people talk about fear of failure, but the real trap for many is fear of success. Because success means responsibility, visibility, higher expectations, possible judgment, possible rejection, possible loss. For someone with childhood trauma or insecure attachment, this is terrifying. So their brain quietly sabotages progress, procrastination, self-doubt, abandoning projects. "I'll start tomorrow," avoiding opportunities, impulsive spending right after a paycheck, quitting too early, choosing the wrong partners, not because they can't succeed, but because success feels unsafe. This is one of the most common psychological reasons people stay stuck financially. Escape begins not with money, but with awareness. When you recognize your patterns, the scarcity thinking, the emotional spending, the inherited beliefs, you finally see the real enemy. And it's not your salary, not the economy, not your circumstances. It's the unconscious programs running in the background of your mind. Changing them won't happen overnight, but it begins with one moment, when you stop surviving and start understanding yourself. Another overlooked factor that keeps people financially stuck is mental burnout. When a person lives under constant stress, financial stress, emotional stress, relationship stress, the brain enters what scientists call cognitive fatigue. This is not laziness. This is not lack of discipline. This is biology. A burnt-out mind cannot analyze risks, make consistent long-term decisions, control impulses, stay organized, think strategically. When every day feels like survival, the brain shuts down anything that isn't urgent. This is why people who are overwhelmed often say, "I'll deal with it later. I can't think right now. I just need a break. I'll fix my finances next week." But next week becomes next month, and then another year. Burnout steals the mental energy required to escape the cycle. The tragedy is that even intelligent, capable adults get trapped not because they don't know how to improve their situation, but because they don't have the internal resources to start. Financial stability requires a calm nervous system, and most people underestimate how deeply emotional exhaustion affects their money decisions. Another powerful force that determines financial outcomes is environment. The people you live with, the people you work with, the people you talk to every week. Humans are social creatures. We subconsciously mirror the behavior, beliefs, and habits of those around us. If everyone around you lives paycheck to paycheck, complains instead of learning, blames the system, avoids responsibility, avoids planning, spends emotionally, fears improvement, mocks ambition, your brain absorbs it like background noise, not because you're weak, because you're human. People rarely become financially stable in environments that punish growth. This is one of the reasons generational poverty is so difficult to escape. The environment reinforces the same patterns, the same stories, the same expectations. Even small improvements are questioned. Why are you trying so hard? Who do you think you are? It won't work. People like us don't succeed. This constant negativity becomes a cage, and escaping it requires not just money, but emotional courage. Changing your environment doesn't always mean moving to another city. Sometimes it means limiting access to people who drain you. Sometimes it means seeking new influences through books, mentors, or online communities. One new healthy influence can shift a lifetime of financial direction. One of the hardest psychological barriers to financial change is the fear of starting over. People stay in the same job, the same habits, the same mindset even when they're unhappy because starting over feels humiliating. We think, "I'm too old to change. It's too late for me. What will people think? If I fail again, it will hurt too much." So instead of starting over at 30, we stay stuck until 40, then 50, then 60. And the cost of not starting becomes far greater than the cost of trying. Restarting is not failure. Restarting is wisdom. The brain loves familiarity, even if familiarity destroys us. This is why people repeat the same money mistakes year after year, because the old life is predictable, and predictability feels safe. Growth, on the other hand, feels dangerous. It requires uncertainty, and uncertainty feels threatening. But here's the truth. The financial world never tells. The moment you decide to restart, your odds of improving your life multiply instantly. Not because you suddenly learned something new, but because you finally stopped fighting your own past. Restarting creates psychological space. Space for new decisions, new habits, new identity. It's the most powerful financial tool people ignore. Financial change doesn't begin with numbers. It begins with self-awareness. When you understand your fears, your triggers, your emotional patterns, your inherited beliefs, your environment, your nervous system, you stop repeating the cycles you didn't even know you were trapped in. This is where progress begins quietly, internally, invisibly. And if you're listening to this, you've already taken the first step. You've chosen awareness over automatic living. And that choice, even if it feels small, is the beginning of a very different future. If this episode helped you see your financial behavior differently, you're already ahead of where you were yesterday. This is Mind and Money, where we explore not just how people earn, but why they think, act, and struggle the way they do.